Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Brogressive Podcast. We're here joined by Bakari Sellers. Really excited to have you, Bakari, here. Dylan's here. So, Dylan, say what's up.
Hi, guys. What's up? How you doing?
So, basically, Bakari's someone, doesn't really need an introduction, but someone who's accomplished more by age of 22 than we will do probably in our lifetime. He grew up in Denmark, South Carolina. Bakari graduated from Morehouse College, and while still at law school at University of South Carolina, made history as the youngest elected official in the South Carolina State Legislature. 2014 was the Democratic nominee for lieutenant governor in South Carolina, and since then, Bakari's been a leading voice in political commentary, serving as a CNN political analyst since 2015. When I first started watching him when I was only like in 7th grade, and he's also the host of the Bakari Sellers podcast. So he's a 2-time New York Times bestselling author of My Vanishing Country, a memoir that sheds light on the lives of Black working-class families, The Moment, thoughts on the race reckoning that wasn't, and a children's book, Who Are Your People? When he's not writing or on air, often having very civil conversations with Scott Jennings. He's cheering on the University of South Carolina women's basketball team, South Carolina Gamecocks. And yeah, we're really excited to have you, Bakari. Hope you're doing well. And if you want to give an introduction to everyone watching out there that maybe doesn't know you, hopefully I did a good job.
You did a great job, man. You gave a better introduction than my mom gives half the time. Is that a gamer chair? Are you a gamer?
Okay, so I used to game more. I kind of just, ever since like the college quarter starts, I kind of stopped gaming, but I don't know. Do you game?
I don't game. I have a 5-year-old now who thinks he's a gamer, though. He's an Astrobot, though, Astrobot, Fortnite, those type of things.
So I was gonna say, wait till he gets his hands on Fortnite, and then he'll be joining the rest of our generation, being addicted to it and stuff.
Does he ask for V-Bucks already?
Oh yeah. Oh, we're there.
There you go.
You're there. So no, man, you gave a great introduction. I'm actually excited to be with you guys. I think that this is a platform that we've been missing for a long period of time, particularly within progressives. There is a battle to re-engage minority communities, but there's also a battle to re-engage men of all ages who have seemingly said that politics is just, fucking crazy right now, and there's nobody that speaks for them, and Democrats are a bunch of weirdos. So I'm glad to be here with y'all.
Yeah, I mean, I think that perfectly segues into like our first question. I kind of wanted to ask you, why do you think that Democrats lost? I know there's a lot of people out there finger pointing this group and that group, but if you had to boil it down to like, it's hard to boil down an election to like a simple reason, but why do you think that Democrats really, got the reckoning that they did?
So first of all, we really need to couch and peel back the layers of the onion to what a reckoning is, because look, Kamala Harris was 200,000 votes away out of the 150 million votes cast from being president of the United States. If she's able to flip 200,000 votes in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, she's president of the United States, right? So let's keep that in mind. Also, the House is extremely close. And of those swing states outside of Pennsylvania, you still won in Nevada, you won in Arizona, you won in Wisconsin, you won in Minnesota, and you won up and down the ballot in North Carolina. So let's just, and it was the most narrow election that we've had in the last, 100 years outside of Bush v. Gore in terms of popular vote. So let's truly understand what we're talking about. That's first. Let's level set. Second, I don't really think there's anything Kamala Harris could have done differently. I want to be extremely clear about that. I don't think the campaign could have done anything differently. Now, certain parts of the campaign we now know sucked, but there was nothing they could have done differently to win this race, because when 2/3 to 3 out of every 4 voters believe they were better off 4 years ago than they are today, then those headwinds are too much. And so that's just fundamentally impossible. It's just not a race you can win. And Kamala Harris did a damn good job in 3 months trying to swim upstream, and she performed extremely well. I know she's proud of herself. I look forward to her, being the next governor of California, or being, running for president again, or just going and kicking her feet up because she owes us jack shit, and, hanging out with Dougie and having a good time.
I do want to hone in on one thing that you did mention. This is the closest election that we've had since Bush v. Gore. And I think one thing that is important to ask, though, is the Democratic Party hasn't had a defeat like this since 2004. It's been 20 years since a Republican presidential candidate has won the popular vote. What do you think shifted the dynamics of this election to make it that conservatives got some of those headwinds. Obviously, like you said, Kamala Harris had a short campaign. She did all that she could have done. But what do you think, especially in progressive messaging, changed over the last 4 years that made it possible for Trump to win in this manner?
Well, I mean, this is when I push back on the framing of the question just a little bit, Dylan, because I am trying to say the Democratic Party doesn't have warts, and we can drill down on that, right? Because we're losing culture wars. It's apparent the demographics are staying home. But in framing the election, we can't look at it in a vacuum. We had about 60 elections around the world in 2024, and the party in power all lost votes. They didn't all lose power, but they all lost votes, from Botswana to South Korea to Ghana. You're talking about what happened in France. I mean, even in Canada, you now have a new prime minister. So this isn't anything that happened in a vacuum. We have to remember that, we emerged from COVID and people thought there were two things that really affected people around the world. One were the rise in prices. My daddy would always complain to me about the price of whiting at Piggly Wiggly down the street from my house. He was just mad about that. And number two, there was a cultural issue about immigration and migration. And, you see that happening in the UK. You see Elon Musk just being weird about it on X all the time. You see that being a big discussion here in the United States. And so if you want to ask me specifically what the Democratic Party does poorly and has done poorly, probably since Barack Obama, is one, we're not a party of good storytellers or messengers. The best example I can give you is everybody hated the Affordable Care Act, right? Well, Obamacare. Nobody liked Obamacare when it passed, but when you talked about the things that were in the Affordable Care Act, people loved it overwhelmingly, right? And the more wild fact about that is that I tell people all the time, nobody knew what was in Obamacare until people tried to take it away from them, right?
Yeah.
So that as great an orator as Barack Obama is, we were never able to tell the story about the successes. The same thing with the Inflation Reduction Act. The same thing with the fact that violent crime rates have gone down, or net migration across the border has gone down, or inflation. So we just haven't been able to, or the fact that we're not in any active combat zones, we're not able to tell those stories well. So that's first. And second thing is, we're just weak. We don't necessarily have a message in which we stand, as they say, 10 toes down. Like we don't exude strength. And Donald Trump has exuded this bully. He always goes back to his base. And it's just been kind of fascinating to see.
Yeah, I agree. And I do think that part of being a young person, I kind of mentioned it last time, but I'm in a fraternity. I'm around a lot of those young men who are getting really sucked into that messaging of Theo Vaughn and Aiden Ross and Joe Rogan kind of collaborating together.
I'll put Theo in the same category. So first of all, Theo is funny as hell.
He is pretty funny.
I watch Theo Vaughn all the time. Aiden is I don't that's just not my thing. Like I don't get it. But Joe Rogan is somewhat of a useful idiot, and you can tell by the people that come on the show. And he was I see the Bernie behind your head. He was a Bernie supporter. And now he's a Trump supporter. I don't find those two things to be that far apart, other than, maybe the character and the morality of the man. But the politics of populism, it brings those two closer together than people actually know. But watching Joe Rogan morph into this figure of kind of the entertainment idiocy. For example, I don't know if you saw recently the conversation he had with Mel Gibson, where they're talking about a cure for stage 4 cancer. And, Mel Gibson will articulate something that's asinine, that, his friends have taken that cured cancer. And Joe Rogan sits there and says, yeah, I heard that. I mean, you have, and this drives him crazy now, but you have the second largest podcast in the world. You're no longer number one. And you are now a bastion of disinformation. You don't push back on Mark Zuckerberg when he comes in, and one of the real reasons that Zuckerberg is cozying up to the Trump administration is to avoid things like 230 liability, to get rid of the antitrust suit. I mean, just to insulate Meta. It's more but you don't push back like that. You see Elon Musk come on the show. I mean, you see all of these individuals come on the show, and he just is kind of this useful idiot type of guy, which traffics in misinformation. But he's strong. He's big. He gambles, right? He exudes machismo. You know, I ain't gonna fight him. I mean, I'm gonna call him what I call him to his face, but I ain't gonna fight Joe Rogan. I ain't stupid. So, I mean, we are losing those battles, which is why your show is so important. I mean, I thought Pod Save was gonna fit in that category, but they kind of speak to that ivory tower mentality that we have to get out of.
Yeah. And a lot of the positions that at least Kamala Harris took on different things was defending the status quo, defending that democracy works if we put all our eggs into it, and that Donald Trump is antithetical to our beliefs about democracy and our principles. I think that kind of is more of an elitist tone.
I would disagree with you a little bit, Dylan. I think Kamala Harris actually focused on like a good amount of populist ideas, like her housing policy, going after big corporations that mass purchase single family homes. She talked about that, like price gouging. A lot of my economic friends here at UCLA think her policy was stupid, but it's a very populist like idea. So I don't think more so it was her. I actually think she talked about a lot of important issues. I think that because you are part of, and I see Bakari, if you agree with, because you are a part of the current administration, like it's virtually impossible for you to go out there and be like, oh, the status quo is stupid. Why? Because you are technically the status quo as the vice president of the United States. And if you disagree with the president, well, they're going to be like, why didn't you bring this up during this meeting? There's, I think it's just very complicated.
Yeah, both of you guys are now in the middle of like Delaware when the campaign was going on and those debates and discussions were coming up. Like, do you distance yourself? What happens when you distance yourself? And then she has a loyalty to Biden. Why didn't she throw Biden under the bus? In hindsight, none of that shit matters. I mean, I hear you. But none of that would have changed the outcome of the race. I've been thinking about the Tim Walz pick a lot. And for the record, he was fourth in my, everybody I would talk to, the vice president and others. I said Mark Kelly 1, Shapiro 2, Pete Buttigieg 3, Tim Walz 4. I just didn't think he brought a whole lot, but I didn't dislike him. But people are like, oh my gosh, she choose Josh Shapiro, maybe she wins. No, she doesn't. But there was this, and it's hard. America has a short memory. I mean, do we not remember what happened 4 years ago? Do you not remember so I am looking forward to the 18-month period of buyer's remorse. I am sitting back and watching. I am working extremely hard in Virginia and New Jersey to make sure we have Democrats elected statewide. Outside of that, I'm giving everything else 18 months, and then we'll get out here and try to make sure we take back that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good answer. People, I feel like Americans kind of vote about what's happening in the present, and high prices. No matter inflation came down, they're still struggling at the pocketbook. I think something that I wanted to bring up, Bakari, was there's this kind of what I've noticed with Democrats, and not just with Democrats, Republicans do this too, but they do this with other issues where Dems will for example, take crime. It was like 2021. I was listening to like Nate Silver, and he was talking about how crime trends were getting better, but people just didn't feel safe. And people across the board, right? No matter your background, they just didn't feel safe. I think for a while, the Biden administration kind of tried to, push out there, there's these drops in violent crime in these cities.
What you're saying is like, you sound like Charlemagne now, my friend Charlemagne, the guy who I talk to all the time. So it's like, people are saying that, a crime is a problem in their neighborhoods, right? And Democrats are like, no, let me show you the statistics. And they're like, no, but I feel it. All right. And how
do you get over that? How do you communicate that?
You communicate with people. And what you do is you look at the people who are doing it well, the messengers who are doing it well, and most of them are mayors. You look at Randall Woodfin, for example, in Birmingham, Alabama, or Andre Dickens in Atlanta, or Vi Lyles in Charlotte. I mean, or Frank Scott in Little Rock. I mean, these people are doing it and doing it well. And they're not only lowering crime, but they're actually in the communities talking to people about those issues. So it's more than just throwing the stats at people. One of the most despicably, insanely brilliant political tactics we've seen since Atwater. I mean, you guys just have to read about Atwater. He was before my time too. So, South Carolina political strategist came up with Southern strategy.
Yeah.
Wildly, insanely brilliant, but perverted in terms of the strategies he used. But busing migrants to major black cities, or major cities, in particular black cities, where you begin to have this pull of migrants versus the Black community in Chicago, in New York, in Baltimore, and places like that, Philadelphia, really was using human beings and their children as chess pieces. But politically, it worked out brilliantly. And we were never able to answer or solve for that. We just felt as if our being on the side of common good was indecency was going to be enough. And it wasn't.
Yeah. One thing that I do wonder, though, is on the ground, like with our friends, with our families, what, like you said, those conversations, what should the starting point be? Living in a separate factual world, how do you maneuver around that? I understand the conversations of, well, this is how I feel. It might not align with the statistics, but for something like January 6th, or for something like climate change, something like issues that are important, at least for young men, or young progressive men, is like, how do you navigate those scenarios?
One, you're probably not you have the right message, but you're not the right messenger. That's one. Two, we need to make sure that we arm those individuals and make sure they're not afraid to have those conversations and say, look, you can have a question about competence around the wildfires and how they're contained and whether or not Karen Bass did her job and whether or not the fire department did their job or how they could do it better. But you can't really deny the fact that the reason that it's, fires in LA and snowing in Dallas is because of climate change, or the fact that you have these fires. Like Elon Musk, for example, the other day was like, well, we have all these forest fires and wildfires in Texas, but they don't ever get out of control like this one in Florida. And I'm like, in California. I'm like, but you don't have 70-mile-per-hour winds, right?
Exactly. Thank you.
Like, what? I mean, are you stupid or stupid? Like, it's so
disingenuous.
Yeah, it's so intellectually disingenuous. But we have to begin to. And so, Dylan, that's why it's important for you to be talking to your frat brothers. You can't cancel people. You can't be morally or intellectually superior to people or call them dumb or talk down to them. But you have to be able to talk to them about facts. And if you talk to them about facts, they'll push back on you and they'll say this, that. But at the end of the day, the sky's not green. All right. And they'll be able to see that, and they may not vote for president of the United States, but they may vote for their local state house member. And that's just how you start getting people going in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. I mean, I kind of look at the North Carolina gubernatorial race, and that gives me a little hope, right? Like Josh Stein winning by 14
You guys need
points.
to have I just had her on my show, but you need to have the chair of the North Carolina Democratic
Party.
Yeah,
we've been reaching out to her. I commented, so I'm going to reach out again. I love her. She's like amazing.
Listen, she is amazingly dope. And so I was hoping she would run for chair. So,
Oh yeah, we gotta talk about chair. Before we get into that, I do want to show you that I got something over the week. Bakari Sellers is The Moment book. Got this at the local Barnes and Noble. I read let's see, where am I at? I'll be honest with you. I'm at 120. Page 120. Read it on the way to Houston. Not a
it's
fun
an easy
game.
read, isn't it?
I actually really enjoyed reading
books
it.
Like difficult. I want it to be thought provoking, but I don't want it to be a difficult read.
Very easy read, like very simple read, but also like I feel like this is a history book, which I love too. You go into and I learned so much about, because I read that you came from a family of lions, right? You came from a family of activists, of champions for civil rights and all these things, but I really didn't know how involved, your family has been. And I kind of wanted to, you mentioned something pretty interesting it was page 72. Your grandpa or someone in your family said that MLK, Martin Luther King Jr. would ask, why do we need a soup kitchen in the richest country in the world? That quote really stood out to me. It kind of made me realize that what Martin Luther King Jr. was fighting for, was obviously civil rights, but also rights, to bridge the wealth inequality. And I kind of wanted to ask you, in writing this book, thinking about, growing up, and you were at 18, 19, traveling down to Mississippi, right? They took you to Mississippi. You talk about going to Tennessee. That's where your mom's parents lived, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Look at
how
you.
How has that shaped you?
I'm impressed.
How has that shaped you?
It just taught me a different way to organize, and which is one of my frustrations with the Democratic Party. It's also how I won my races. It's also how I wish people would run more races. The problem with my generation and your generation that follows is that a lot of our young electeds and young leaders And this is a weird thing. I think it started around '08, but they get involved in politics because they want to be famous. And what happened around 2008 was this really weird intersection of entertainment, culture, sports, and politics, where Barack Obama made it cool, right? I've never known anybody to be like, man, damn, I want to be like Al Gore. Like, that just wasn't, they like, did you see Al Gore's swag? Like, nobody said that. Nobody was like, man, Tip O'Neill is probably the dopest man on earth.
O'Neill.
That's not a thing that people like say. But Barack Obama made it cool again, right? And so you ushered in this entire generation. And, you know, for me, I remind people often that I got elected before Barack Obama kind of came into this thing. I got elected when I looked up to Deval Patrick. He was my hero, you know, a 2-term governor of Massachusetts. And when I ran for office, it was knocking on doors. It was phone calls. It wasn't text messages, right? It was your friends getting together in a church basement with cold pizzas, dialing up numbers on a sheet of paper, right? And I didn't have enough money for commercials. It was making sure that I had people stand up in churches. And one of the things my dad taught me in the movement was that when they would go down to Philadelphia, Mississippi, or they'd go down to Alabama, and they were registering voters, they never went in trying to tell people what to do. They went in to empower those individuals in their community to go out and do what they felt best for their own community. And that is something Democrats have to get back to. And it's a different level of progressivism. It's a different level of understanding. It's a different level of morality when you look back at King's speeches and where he was on poverty and war. When you look at people like Marion Barry when he was mayor, what that meant. When you look at Julian Bond when he was running for office, or John Lewis and what they stood for. But they also were really good on policy, which my fucking generation is terrible at. Like, my favorite legislator, and this is how you know we get weird sometimes. This is when we're like the antithesis to being the cool Democrats. We're like in the weeds when you have a favorite legislator. But I love Lauren Underwood. Like, she, for me,
She's awesome.
The everything.
Yeah.
She's somebody who passes legislation. She's not out there trying to, you know, be boisterous,
flashiest congressperson.
Yeah, or, you know, look at what I'm wearing today. I mean, she's out there representing her constituents, getting the job done, and hopefully will be in the United States Senate one day soon. You know, I think that there are very, very talented people who are up next who are going to turn the page, but I just hope and pray we don't. I think that too many people, Governor Polis out of Colorado is one of those individuals. But I think too many people are learning the wrong things. Fetterman is kind of, he's
a unique individual, Bakari.
But he's always been this way. So I'm not,
he's always,
I'm not, you know, I've always been, ever since he chased the black dude with the shotgun,
that too.
I've been a little leery of him. But, you know, it's fine. It's a big tent. I'm somebody who, you know, didn't necessarily care for Kyrsten Sinema a lot, but she was a part of our party. Like, we needed Sinema. We needed Manchin. If you want to get the 52, you got to, you know, you need the numbers. I mean, if you want to get some judges and you want to win some votes, you need the numbers. So I understand the big tent. So I am looking forward to this and turning the page in this next generation of Westmore and Gretchen and Raphael Warnock. I'm looking forward to the fact that we probably, oh, there you go, the other Westmore. Shout out to Wes.
Yes, sir. You look
at the city of New York. I think Eric Adams is. People give Karen Bass a hard time, and probably rightfully so. I mean, I haven't been able to, being on this coast, I haven't been able to you know, accurately sift through what's fiction and what's, you know, what's truth and what's false. And part of it is because the LA Times is run by this guy who is fucking terrible.
Yeah, and then his daughter is like a super progressive. It's so confusing.
It's just weird. And so, you know, what once was a bastion of journalism, I'm not sure anymore. It's like it's being stripped for parts. And so I say all of that to say that Eric Adams is the worst mayor on the planet. And, you know, I saw a poll today talking about they wanted to bring Cuomo back. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, I don't understand.
Bro, what's happening with the New York Democratic Party?
Man, I don't know. But he's at 33%, which is all you need to be mayor in New York. So, I mean, it's just a lot going on right now. And I am ready to woosah my way and pop some edibles and relax and chill out.
Hell yeah, man.
Next 18 months.
So I definitely agree with you. I definitely think somebody like Raphael Warnock would probably be my pick to run in 2028. I think the way he speaks and not only just the communication style,
Great
but
guy, like all around too.
the actual activism within his community is like commendable, and somebody that I think I would want to be on my party's ticket. But in the world of social media and in the world of competing for clicks and views and in that maybe determining your electoral outcomes, somebody who I think of as like AOC, she's become much more mature in her tenure in the House of Representatives, but when she started out, very progressive, very antithetical, and not working to get a lot of things done. How do you balance those things? Like you said, a good positive policy outlook, good community involvement, good person who has uncompromising values, while at the same time competing for clicks and views on X or on YouTube. Or
I mean, I'm not someone. I will be extremely honest with people. I wasn't an AOC fan when the squad kind of came in. In fact, Ayanna Pressley is one of my dearest friends. I love Ayanna, but she was like the only one probably that I found any type of a bond with. I didn't know the rest of them either, so it wasn't anything personal. But I just thought that there was this upsetting clamor for fame and not enough of the ability to be successful legislators, right? Which is what you're there to be. AOC has really, I have become very fond of her and her skill set and the way she communicates with people. I believe that she has a very, very, very bright future. I want to be a part of it. I don't know if she'll be president of the United States or anything like that, but I do think she has a bright future, and she's somebody that can be a beacon and a positive communicator. She's still, though, a level below or a few levels below someone like Pete Buttigieg, who comes with a level of depth and charisma and, being able to go into those fire pits and still be able to come out unscathed and maybe convince somebody like, for example, Dylan, that, look, climate change is real. Pete has that unique ability. The question is, does the country want, a president and a first man with two beautiful twins? Like, it's not just our white folk in Alabama ready for it, but our black folk ready for it, our Hispanic men ready for it, ready for it as a country. We haven't proven to be able to elect a woman to be president of the United States either. But Pete Buttigieg is someone who's like beyond uber talented and is the closest thing to Bill Clinton we've had since Bill Clinton. Actually, Patrick Kennedy and Harold Ford, but then Pete Buttigieg.
That's pretty big. I think we know who will be the campaign manager for Pete Buttigieg in 2028. No, I think that's a good answer.
I think Pete Buttigieg is going to run for governor of Michigan.
Yeah, that one, because you have your friend who I was reading about in the book, Gilchrist,
Garland
right?
Gilchrist.
Yeah, he might run. I like him a lot.
I love him. I love Garland too. That's an interesting race. I read
the book Bakari C.
Yeah, you did. I don't know what Dylan's been doing, but that's okay. We'll get Dylan. Dylan's about to say, "Man, I've been in class." Whatever, Dylan.
We haven't had class. It's been fully online, Dylan. What's your excuse?
You're just one-upping me. I'll just leave it there.
I'm just kidding. No, I mean, I know, Bakari, you do have to run out. You're gonna be on Anderson Cooper, right?
Yeah, I think I'm trying to see if they're still booking me on or they're gonna cut me. But regardless, I appreciate y'all, man. Let's do this again, man. Let's just when there's something going on in the world that y'all want to talk about, call me back and we'll do it live. We'll do a YouTube live and just talk to the people.
Yeah, I'm down. Hopefully we can have Max and Ben on. Thank you for coming back on and everything. Really, really appreciate it, Bakari. I've been watching you since I was like 15, man. So
you keep saying that shit. You're making me feel old.
Trying not to fan.
Man, before I was born, my parents were talking about you, man.
For sure though. Look, we really want to have more of these conversations. I think it's really important. I think we're supposed to have. We've been trying to get Ken Martin on, so we'll see how that's working. But the DNC chair race, that's going to be the next thing to fight over, and let's hope the party can, find something. Just find something. I don't care who it is. Just find something.
Yeah, I'm probably more leaning towards Ben and Martin O'Malley. I don't know Ken to save my life.
Yeah.
But ask them about Ricky Cobb and their failures in Minnesota to properly address Ricky Cobb.
No.
I'd love to hear what Ken says about that.
Okay, we have him on. We'll ask him about that, and then we'll probably never have him on again.
That probably is true. But y'all have fun, man. I appreciate what you're doing. I can't wait to watch it grow and grow and grow. In 4 years, man, people running for president of the United States are going to have to stop by this podcast.
And
Yeah,
when you run
hopefully,
for
fingers crossed.
governor soon, maybe, I mean,
Oh, bye.
bye, Bakari.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.